It's Friday, baby. Another week in the books, and hopefully another week of fantasy hockey dominance. You're tapped into your daily source. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Nothing is more critical at this time of the year than the ease of schedule, and we're taking a look at it on today's episode. Let's tap in.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music and you know what time it is. You're tapped back into your daily source for fantasy hockey news, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Friday edition. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers. Steele, the fantasy GM work doesn't stop. You know this. That's why we're taking a look at a couple of interesting angles on today's show. Of course, we got to talk about these Nashville Predators. My goodness me. Out of nowhere, once again, this team is very pesky, but I'm actually intrigued on how they're doing it. I've dug into the numbers a little bit. It's not making a whole ton of sense. However, we're taking a look at the schedules as well, because this is super important right now for fantasy playoffs. Teams that have easy schedules, teams that don't. You want to be targeting these situations. Then we're going to wrap the show with the Hart, Norris, and Cup race awards, baby, and updated odds. You know, we got to get to sprinkling. Steele, we're going to keep today's episode very short and sweet. We're slacking in the mackin', but over to you, brother. Nashville, on fire. What's your take here in this situation?
I mean, they've always been one of my dark horse teams, along with the New York Islanders in the Eastern Conference. I say it almost every single year. You got to watch out for the Nashville Predators and the New York Islanders as dark horse teams. And yeah, I agree with you. Some of these numbers aren't making any sense for why they're doing so well. They're 14th best in goals for per game at 3.18. They're 8th in shots with over 2,100. They're anywhere from 14th to 17th in all the other categories: penalty kill, power play, goals against, whatever it may be. But I think the one that stands the most out to me is they are the second most physical team in the NHL behind the Florida Panthers. Over 1,800 hits in the NHL so far this season. They're also one of the most penalized teams in the NHL. So they play a very physical game, and that's actually who I'm going to compare it to are the Florida Panthers. I think they play some of the same. They have they play the same type of game. But for the Nashville Predators, they don't have the same amount of talent that the Florida Panthers have. They don't have the same amount of speed that the Florida Panthers have. They are they have a combination of veteran players and young players right now, and this is something that they've been going through over the last year and a half. Whether they were going through a rebuild or not, it could have been happening this year, because a lot of people didn't have faith in the Nashville Predators, but they've proven a lot of us wrong. But for me, I think you just got to look at what they've done so far this season. Filip Forsberg hasn't dropped a step. He is still a goal-scoring machine. 69 points in 67 games. Roman Josi, we haven't talked about him enough at all this entire season.
And I'm going to. So
he continues to get it done. 50 assists, 15 goals, 65 points in 67 games. Gustav Nyquist might be one of the most underrated players this season.
Your boy.
A very sneaky sleeper pick. 58 points in 67 games. And then you just look at the young guys, Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista, Kiefer Sherwood. I think that's the biggest thing for why this team is doing so well right now is they're not depending on just one player to the entire game or every single game. Each player has their own shining moments, whether it's a week and then a week later from now, Filip Forsberg goes out and gets a hat trick. Roman Josi puts up a 4-point night. They're all doing it simultaneously or one after another. It's not just one guy taking the lead and really putting the team on his back this season. Obviously, you got to give some kudos to UC Saros over the last month, because he's been absolutely spectacular. But this team has been very overlooked this entire season. Very underrated from, the acquisitions they made in the offseason, some of the trade deadlines they made, but it's a very sneaky team, and that's why I continue to have them as a dark horse.
You teed up so many nice points there, Steele. You said you were dragging. You're killing it, pal. You're ready to go. Look,
wait for the other topics.
I just think that they are a pesky team to play
Yeah.
against. You're making the point to, like, they throw hits, most penalized. I know obviously their special teams could be better, but I think this is just a tough team to play against. And I'll say this. I mentioned Philip Forsberg as a potential sell high target around the halfway point of the season. I want to say I was wrong. A lot of people came on here and said, you're crazy. He's having an amazing season. And he is. I just don't know if he's going to be able to replicate that next year at this high of a level, but he's basically done it for most of his career. So maybe I need to start buying into it. And I'll say this because you mentioned Josi and Saros. And I think those are the two names that need to be mentioned. Take this in. Over the last 26 games, Josi has 33 points. He's a plus 12 penalty minutes and eating almost 25 minutes in ice time per night. And in terms of Saros in the cage, 3-3 in his last 16 starts and a .915 save percentage. Obviously, this team needed those two guys to go for it to go, and take a look at it now. They're definitely a team that I don't think the way they're playing right now, Steele, and I know I throw this out quite a bit. Why would you want to take Nashville in the first round? And look, they probably go up against the Canucks. Nashville in the first round. I don't know, Steele. That might be a very, very interesting series and a tough one for the Canucks to handle, especially if they're still dealing with some issues to Thatcher Demko. We're not going to go down that path. I just wanted to give the Predators credit because at 80 points right now, 3 up on the Golden Knights for that wild card spot. Hey, they definitely deserve some credit, which I think we just gave them. However, they are a pesky club that is going to be tough to play against.
Very pesky club. And I think that would actually be a really good first round for the Nashville Predators against the Vancouver Canucks, because that could potentially be a round where the Vancouver Canucks fold, just like we saw last year with the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers in the first round. I do want to say this just to wrap it up. If you're Barry Trotz right now, the GM of the Nashville Predators, you got to be absolutely ecstatic with how this team has performed this season, as well as ecstatic about what the future holds. They have 19 draft picks in the first 4 rounds over the next 3 years. I mean, they have so much draft capital that, come next year's trade deadline, perhaps they have so much draft picks that they're able to go out there. So if they're in a better position, they can acquire even better players at the NHL trade deadline to really facilitate and booster that top 6 forward group right now. But again, the guys that they brought in, Ryan O'Reilly's been absolutely phenomenal. Gustav Nyquist has been really good.
Jason Zucker at the deadline.
Jason Zucker at the deadline. This team is just meshing right now ever since they got pumped. What was it, 9-2 against the Dallas Stars when they had that U2 Vegas trip and that was canceled. So they've turned the ship around. They've turned everything around right now, and they're heading in the right direction.
Love it. And hey, just fired up for the postseason, fired up for the rest of the episode, keeping it short and sweet once and for all, Steele. Here we go. Taking a look at the schedule because this is important for bets. It's important for how you're deploying your roster in the postseason, fantasy postseason, that is having a look at this ease of schedule, who's got a lot of good games against weak opponents and the opposite. And we're going to wrap the show. Quick odds update. Hart Trophy, Norris Trophy, Stanley Cup. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. Get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is boosting every single dollar you transfer from the other retirement accounts with a 3% match. No cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. Now, for the legal info, claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Today. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. That is, baseball fans everywhere, mark your calendars for March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the MLB season preview coming exclusively on the Locked On Sports Days YouTube channel on March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of Locked On Podcast Network. Again, Find it on March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Locked On Sports Days 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, or you can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Doing great things over there. So make sure you mark that down in your calendars because the baseball season is right around the corner. Thank you so much again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. We got a few more topics to talk about. We're going to get to some Hart, Norris Trophy Cup races right now.
Yes,
what
sir.
the odds updates. But first, let's take a look at some of the NHL teams with the best and worst remaining schedules for the season. This is a good topic to talk about because these are teams and players that you're going to want to be targeting over the next, final week of the regular season in fantasy leagues, as well as heading into the playoffs for fantasy leagues as well.
I think it's also an intriguing angle to look at for betting because, of course, this is hockey, it's sports, anything can happen. But I really do think at this time of year, if you look back, those teams that are sitting in the pretty playoff positions, there's a lot of P's, really do start to dust aside some of the weaker opponents. And I'm taking a look at the LA Kings as a team that has been a little bit up and down this season, Steele. Obviously, you know how I feel about the LA Kings, even though they really didn't do, anything to address the goaltending at the deadline. They're still sitting in third, and I'm looking at this, how their schedule is lining up. One of the easiest down the stretch, and I think that's going to be huge for LA Kings fans and fantasy owners of pieces on the LA Kings who have been up and down themselves. Take this in. They've got 3 games against the Blackhawks, 2 games against the Ducks. They got the Sharks, Kraken, Wild twice, and Flames. And then when you look at the better side of it, they have the Canucks, they have the Oilers. Both of those teams allow a lot of goals. And then they have the Jets and the Stars. So I'm really looking at the LA Kings as also a team, Steele, that they can't afford to lose any games. So in terms of making the postseason, fantasy aside, I'm looking at the LA Kings as a really advantageous schedule down the stretch here. And I'd actually look for their fantasy pieces to take a bump because they should be beating most of those teams that I mentioned.
Yeah, they should be. And I've also got a couple teams from the Western Conference, 2 teams, one that we just talked about and another that's fighting for a wild card spot. So I'll start with them. The St. Louis Blues also have one of the easiest schedules remaining for the season, actually the 3rd easiest remaining schedule. San Jose Sharks twice, Chicago Blackhawks, Anaheim Ducks twice, Ottawa Senators, Calgary Flames, and Seattle Kraken. Some of their harder opponents, Colorado, Dallas, Vegas, Edmonton, and Carolina. So pretty balanced there between easy and hard teams. But this is a squad right now that is continuing to have to fight for a wild card spot. So guys like Justin Falk, Colton Parayko on the back end, they fill out the peripheral stats. Even Torrey Krug, who's rostered at 28% on Yahoo. Braden Shen rostered at 32%. He fills out the peripheral stats. So your boy Jake Neighbors as well. He fills out the peripheral stats. So I think the St. Louis Blues have a pretty balanced schedule from easy to hard. And there's a lot of guys who are under 40% out there on Yahoo that you can go and target. And then the other team we just talked about, the Nashville Predators, they're absolutely rolling right now. They haven't lost a game in regulation, I believe, in the last 11 or 12.
Yeah. They're 10-2 in their last 12 games.
Yeah, they're playing absolutely fantastic hockey right now. And just to go back to some of their players that we just talked about, like Tommy Novak, Jeremy Lauzon, Gustav Nyquist, who remains under 45% almost the entire season. Colton Sissons, time to time, he'll pick up a couple.
Evangelista has been okay.
Jason Zucker. So there's a lot of guys right now. Alexander Carrier fills out the blocks in the penalty minutes category. So those 3 teams with your LA Kings all have some pretty easy schedules for the remaining season, and they have a lot of guys under 50% rostered on Yahoo who are playing some really good hockey right now.
Appreciate these takes, Steele. You're on fire, pal, and that's why I might have to mention your team. Minnesota Wild have a pretty good-looking schedule down the stretch. Look, anybody who has multiple games against the Sharks, Ducks, and Blackhawks, that's where it's at. And they have 3, where am I at here? 2 against the Sharks, 2 against the Ducks, 1 against the Sens, and 1 against the Blackhawks. And then obviously better opponents in the Avs and Golden Knights, Kings, and otherwise. However, how Minnesota has been playing lately and where they're sitting, I believe they're tied. I'll bring this one back up. They're tied with the Blues with 71 points. They both have played 66 games. I know there's still that 6-point gap to close on Vegas. I just don't think it's over yet. And given how many new bodies are in the mix in Vegas and how they have been up and down, do I still think Vegas should most definitely get into the playoffs? And now with all the moves they've made, I'm even more intrigued. Of course. However, the Minnesota Wild have the schedule that's shaping up. They've been scoring a ton of goals. And if you can get a piece of some of those peripherals, that's where we're looking at. And the Minnesota Wild have that good schedule. However, Steele, there are a couple of teams that I'm a little bit concerned about. And why don't we start with the one that I think you and I probably, well, not probably, causes us the most grief, and it's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
And look, when you take a peek at this standings, 82 points for the Leafs. Right now, it's looking like, okay, it's not too bad. 8 points up on Tampa, 10 points up on the New York Islanders, but hold the phone because the schedule down the stretch, Steele, it's not so pretty. Panthers twice, Canes twice. They get the Oilers, Flyers twice. And then you look at games like this, Washington twice, the New Jersey Devils 3 times. Those aren't exactly all walk in the park games, even on the poorer side of things, like looking at the Devils and Caps, who have been decent, really decent at times this season. I'm just a little bit wary of the Toronto Maple Leafs if they slip down into a wild card spot, and they might have to go up against the likes of perhaps the New York Rangers up top. You know what I'm saying here, Steele? Or the Florida Panthers again. I'm even more concerned. So in terms of schedules getting tough, and, Mitchie Marner is out, I'm a little bit worried about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I just had to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely valid and fair to be worried about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think as Leaf fans, if we're not, then we're not true Leaf fans who bleed the the blue and white.
Cry blue as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about it because to your point, just the other day, they play the Philadelphia Flyers twice. And what you said the other day, they've absolutely hammered the Philadelphia Flyers, and they're on the tougher side of the schedule. So
good point.
I get what you're saying. I completely agree because I am worried, but they do have 6 points. They're 6 points up they're 8 points up on the Tampa Bay Lightning with 1 game in hand. I'm not too worried about them slipping down into a wild card spot right now. Okay. Maybe if they lose 2 or 3 in a row, then I'll start to get worried a little bit.
You're right.
I'm trying to remain positive, remain focused.
I appreciate that. Trust me, I appreciate it.
Well, I do agree with you in some sense, but just going to another team, the Boston Bruins also have a very tough schedule. They have been playing very bad hockey as well. I know, I feel like for the last 2-3 weeks now, they've been at the same record of 2-3-5, or right now they're 4-2-4. They're losing a lot of games in overtime, which is very scary for them come the postseason. I understand it's 3-on-3 hockey, and come postseason it's gonna be 5-on-5, but Boston Bruins is a tough team, a tough schedule remaining for them.
Yeah, and actually, just looking at the Colorado Avalanche, 3 against Edmonton. They got the Knights, the Jets, the Rangers, and the Stars. The Red Hot Predators as well. That's another one of those teams that, do I think it's going to slow them down? Maybe a little bit in terms of production. They're still going to be there. It's just one of those angles that when I look at those teams, Steele, and we know Colorado has struggled at times this season to keep pucks out of their own net. It's just an angle that I had to mention. However, we're going to mention one more angle after the break. We're going to talk about the Norris Cup race. Updated odds very quickly. There's a couple of interesting matchups here, Steele, and a couple of very interesting odds that I want to have a look at right after the break.
Right after the break, indeed. This episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Grocery bills are so expensive these days, but they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies and everything in between. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. So you can buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or the fancy dinner your girlfriend or partner has been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or even gift cards. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time is when you can find us, or just whenever you feel like it throughout the day when you've got some free time, driving to work, going to the gym, whatever you like. But make sure you're tuning in Monday through Sunday. Over to the updated odds for the Hart, the Norris, and Stanley Cup race. Which category do you want to start with, Flip?
Well, let's start with the Hart, because I think you and I had a second half bold predictions, and I threw out there that Connor McDavid for the Hart and the Art Ross should not be counted out, and he was like 21 points behind Cooch, or maybe even more.
Yeah.
If he gets, and I know there's been a lot of talk out there about 100 assists. I mentioned it earlier this week on the pod. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I understand that Nikita Kucherov has been absolutely sensational. There's been talks about Austin Matthews. Let's be real. Nathan MacKinnon is the favorite for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have mentioned that I don't think coming into this season saying that Nathan MacKinnon was going to be the best player and the best, most valuable player and fantasy piece, I don't know if you would have gotten a ton of hate for it, Steele, but I don't think a lot of people would have agreed with you.
Yeah.
So I'll just say this. It's impressive that Connor McDavid is still right there at plus 350. And I think this one is not as close as the next race I want to mention. I'll leave it at this. Minus 185 for Nathan MacKinnon. I'm not going to put any money on that because I think the value actually is with Connor McDavid, because if he gets 100 assists and he does something special down the stretch here, I could most definitely see him winning that thing.
I think, and I agree with you on this take with Connor
It would take
McDavid.
something special, though.
I think that's where the value definitely is at plus 350 with Connor McDavid. And I'll say this, I do have Nathan MacKinnon as the Hart Trophy winner by the end of the season. But with all things considered, if Connor McDavid is able to reach 100+ assists, which I believe that would make him the sixth or seventh, fourth. Wow, fourth
Wayne Gretzky,
player,
Mario Lemieux, and Bobby Orr. That's it. Who have ever done that?
Player in NHL history to reach 100+ assists in a season. Yeah. If he's able to accomplish that, plus we just go back to the entirety of the NHL season for the Edmonton Oilers, dead last in the Western Conference, losing games left and right, firing Jay Woodcroft, and then completely turning it around, going on that 17-game winning streak. I mean, you got to take all of that into consideration and how far Connor McDavid has jumped up the standings in the point leaders category. So I think for me, if he reaches 100+ assists, it's Connor McDavid for the Hart Trophy all the way. For the Art Ross Trophy, I still think I'm going with Nathan MacKinnon. I don't think Connor McDavid's going to catch him necessarily.
And look, MacKinnon has got an absolute Hart Trophy worthy season going, and 324 shots on net. He leads the league in game-winning goals with 9, 115 points, an absolute tank of a player. And look, if you can get either of these guys on your fantasy hockey team, you are in good shape, most definitely. However, more interesting angle that I wanted to bring up here, Steele, and I need your take on this because I don't know how far off the mark I am. Quinn Hughes is minus 390 for the Norris.
Yeah.
And you look at Cale Makar at plus 300, and I just don't understand. And am I missing something here? Is it because of he doesn't play with as many offensive superstars and Cale Makar? Because Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes' numbers offensively are very, very similar. And actually, in terms of takeaway giveaway numbers and on-ice success, Cale Makar's got that too. So I don't understand why Quinn Hughes is at minus 390 when also Cale Makar has won the Norris and finished third and second in voting when previously in his career, Quinn Hughes has only finished ninth in Norris voting. So I don't really know what's going on here when Quinn Hughes is minus 390. Has he had a very good Norris-worthy season? Most def. But why aren't they a little bit closer with the odds? I don't know what's going on there.
For me, prior finishes, in Norris rankings or whatever trophy race you're in, whether you finish 10th or 15th or 2nd, I don't think that has a huge factor because it's a completely new season. The slate has been wiped clean. You start from the beginning. I agree with you. I'm not quite sure why it's minus 390 and why there's such a big margin between Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar. I still would have Quinn Hughes as the number one, as the
Fair.
leader right now
Yeah,
for the Norris Trophy,
sure.
but minus
Sure.
390 is absurd. I think, minus 150, maybe if you push it
Yeah,
to minus 200, maybe
exactly.
I would agree
Sure.
with that. But minus 390 is a little bit of a stretch for me. But I do
Yeah.
think Quinn Hughes has been the better defenseman, overall player,
Yep. I'm here
defenseman
for that.
wise in the NHL. So
Yep.
76 points, only 3 points ahead of Cale Makar, who's played 5 games less. I think maybe this is the biggest, benefactor for Quinn Hughes. He's a plus 36 when Cale Makar is a plus 13. Maybe that's a difference maker for the Vegas odd
Interesting.
makers out there, but you said
Interesting.
it yourself, and everyone can see it in the numbers. Very similar between those two guys. I want to throw this out there. Why is it every single season Roman Josi gets the disrespect in the Norris Trophy race? Like this
I don't
guy's
know.
third. This guy's third
I
amongst
don't know.
defensemen in points. He has 65 points. He's plus 11, 37 penalty minutes, 214 shots. He plays over 24 and a half minutes. He's not even in the top 5. He's not even in the top 7. He's plus 7,500. I don't understand that myself.
Yeah, that's some slander actually, and it has got to have something to do with the small market in Nashville.
Yeah.
Definitely should get a lot more respect, both on the ice and in fantasy circles. Most actually, probably fantasy cats know about Roman Josi by now.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely here for this take. However, let's just wrap it up with this deal because episode's already at 26 minutes, pal. I'm just gonna throw this out there because to stay on point, I got one team looking in the East and one team in the West for the Stanley Cup odds. The Carolina Hurricanes at plus 800, doing what they've done at the deadline. Gensel is a big move. Getting Freddie back in there, that's a big return. Can he go on a little bit of a run at plus 800? I'm going to sprinkle out of the East. West, I'm sticking to my guns. At plus 1,000, it's the Dallas Stars. They're going to get a chunk of my money. I have been saying that for a long time, and I'm going to stick to that. But those are the two teams, one in the East and one in the West. Other than that, read into the odds as you will because they'll continue to change.
Just for myself, again, I'm standing where I've been saying all season long. Plus 1,100 for the New York Rangers. I didn't think they had to make too many moves. If they could land one of those strong right wingers, that would have been great. But I love the New York Rangers. I love where this team is heading. So plus 1,100 for me. And then in the Western Conference, I think I got to go over to the Vegas Golden Knights still. I know they're still, they're holding on to a wild card spot. Hopefully they can hold on to it and actually make the postseason. But when they get Mark Stone back, when they get all of their injured players back into this lineup, they are the reigning Stanley Cup champions for a reason. Adin Hill is going to pop off once again in the postseason. So Vegas Golden Knights at plus 900 is also really juicy.
Don't hate it. Don't hate any of those angles. And why not the reigning Cup champs? Adin Hill has looked sensational for the most part. I'm here for it. They just got to make the postseason steal. And then all bets are off, quote unquote, although there'll be a whole bets on as well.
Exactly. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Day, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They are here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. Also, make sure you mark down March 20th in your calendar for the MLB preview show. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend out there. Good luck with all your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.